What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel. What a crazy 24 hours it has been in the world of Celtic. I'm still processing everything that unfolded last night and reflecting on the live stream. I think it was, like I say, it was impromptu. We were literally dealing with everything as it was happening because I came out to set up the live stream, get the guys on, and as I was doing that, the statement from Dermot Desmond came out. So that time when I read it on the live stream was the first time I'd read it in its entirety. So it was very difficult to form opinions and actually process everything that was in it live while recording. It was a crazy day, a crazy evening, followed up by a crazy day. Coming up, we're going to look at briefly again the statement and some of the content of it. We'll talk about the press conference with Martin O'Neill and Shaun Maloney, which is not long finished as I record this video. We'll also discuss the protest that's happening at Celtic Park tomorrow night, and we'll ask the question, where do Celtic go from here? Who will be the next permanent manager of the club, and when can we expect that appointment to be confirmed? Now, we'll start, like I say, with last night's events and Brendan Rodgers resigning as the Celtic manager, and one of the big talking points from that news and the statement that followed is, did he resign or was he forced to resign because the club were going to sack him anyway? Now, it's one of those things I guess we'll never know. From Rodgers' point of view, you think that by resigning he's not due any compensation, but by reading the statement you think if the club think that low of him, or Dermot Desmond thinks that low of him, why didn't he sack him? And actually the bigger question probably to be asked is, why didn't he sack him last month or in August or at the end of the transfer window if he thought he was such a poisonous influence on the club? Because that's the picture that's painted by that statement. Now, I think the statement is an absolute disgrace. We talked about this a bit last night, so apologies if I'm going over any old ground for people, but I think to preach about self-preservation and professionalism in that statement, which is done entirely to deflect blame and to air Dermot Desmond's personal grievances in an official public forum through the Celtic website, was extremely unprofessional. It's not befitting of Celtic Football Club. I don't think Dermot Desmond should do such a thing when he's not the outright owner of the football club. He's a non-executive director with 34% of the shareholding, and I joked last night that it was like something Marinakis would do at Nottingham Forest, who's been ridiculed for the way he's acted as an owner, as an actual owner of a football club recently, and now he has to be front and centre and his voice has to be the loudest. I think that statement last night shows you exactly where the executive team stand in their importance in the hierarchy at Celtic Football Club. They might as well be cardboard cutouts, the chief executive and the other members of the executive team, because why is Dermot Desmond the person making a statement about a manager and doing it in that tone? I think it was extremely, as I say, unprofessional. It wasn't befitting of Celtic Football Club, and I don't think anyone should be acting in that manner. If you have personal grievances and there's been internal politics and fallings out, then keep that in-house, keep it indoors, and let the dust settle before absolutely unleashing in that manner. I think it paints the club in a bad light. I think if you were a prospective new manager looking at that, you'd have reservations. It's been the biggest news story across football in Scotland and the whole of the UK today. It's the predominant talking point on Sky Sports News and all the big outlets. The media have been all over it. I don't think it paints the club in a good light, and it is the actions of one man. But what this really shows you is that Celtic Football Club is at the behest of one man. It's Dermot Desmond who calls all the shots, who makes all the decisions. And it was interesting, there was a clip put up on Sky Sports News, one of their social feeds today, showing Michael Nicholson entering the stadium, and the discussion was around he will be beginning the search for a new manager, a new permanent manager. Let's not pretend that Michael Nicholson will be really involved in the search for a new manager. Dermot Desmond will find a new manager. He'll phone him, he'll conduct the interviews, he'll do everything. Like I say, the executive team at Celtic are no more than placeholders. They're effectively cardboard cutouts for all the power they have, for all the duties of actual executive officers that they have to fulfil. They are placeholders, and they are just waiting on Dermot Desmond and what he thinks, what he says, what decisions he makes, and they just fall in line with that. I think on the one hand, it's an easy job when you don't have to make any of the big decisions. It's just the single largest shareholder that does it. But I accept that they are under intense scrutiny, and that's not going to go away. And I think their majority shareholder has caused that to be worsened in the next few days. Now, I think that's what we're going to see. Even I say the next few days, I mean the next few weeks, the next few months. I think this has only heightened the sense of distrust that the support feels towards the Celtic board and towards Dermot Desmond. Now, like I say, we're going to come to talk about Martin O'Neill and Shaun Maloney in the press conference in a minute, but I think what this does is really lays bare the dynamic in the Celtic boardroom, that Dermot Desmond makes all the decisions, and to conduct himself in that manner at that time, I think was absolutely appalling. And tomorrow there will be a demonstration at the stadium, 7 p.m. at the main stand. This has been decided by the Celtic Fans Collective. The steering group unanimously decided. All of the major fan organisations are said to be on board with it. So everyone is encouraged to make their way to the main stand at 7 p.m. tomorrow to voice the level of disagreement and frustration and anger we feel about how things have been handled over the last few months. I think that how things went last night was probably the worst. I mean, a lot of things have gone on at the football club in the last few months, but last night was probably the worst of all. And again, like I say, it calls into question a lot of things about how Celtic Football Club is run. And I think it's right that the supporters go and make their voice heard collectively before the game tomorrow. I understand there'll be happy clappers who are not on board with it and think that they'll make up some story about how it'll affect the team on the pitch. The fans are well within their right to make their voice heard about this, because we are being let down by inadequate leadership. And I think it's high time there was a collective form of protest before the game in the car park, as they would historically call it. So tomorrow at 7 p.m, I would certainly encourage everyone to make it there if you can. But I mean, this video was going to be the starting 11 prediction, obviously, but I think talking about what the 11 might look like tomorrow is sort of paling into insignificance given everything that's unfolded. So I'm not going to run through a team. Who knows what the team will look like tomorrow? We've got so many injuries, and now we've got an interim management team coming in. The coaching staff has been ripped apart. John Kennedy's gone, Glenn Driscoll's gone, Jack Lyons, everyone associated with Brendan Rodgers. I think John Kennedy's departure is the one that speaks volumes, because he's been at the club for such a long time. And you think that with his history as a coach at Celtic, that he could have found a place in this interim team and maybe kept some sort of coaching position moving forward. But I think the fact that he's left with Brendan Rodgers probably speaks volumes about where he's at in terms of how things have gone on at Celtic through the last few months. Not a word from the club, by the way, on John Kennedy's departure. That must have sort of slipped under the radar while they were trying to process Dermot Desmond's rant last night, which I think is very poor for someone who's given such a great service to the club. But like I say, there's so much going on off the pitch that it seems futile to run through a starting 11 tonight. But we will talk about the press conference, which has not long finished, with Martin O'Neill and Shaun Maloney. I think you get the impression that everything is unknown. I think it's been a whirlwind. It's been really turbulent for obviously both of those guys. You can tell that. Martin O'Neill was on the radio yesterday morning, and probably, if you believe that he received the call yesterday afternoon, absolutely no idea he'd find himself in this position less than a day later. It seems all over the place, having lost all the coaching staff as well. I think there's a risk that there's absolutely no continuity there for the players, and I think the players will be shell-shocked. Shaun Maloney said in the press conference today that there was a very strange atmosphere in the training ground. It was a turbulent, traumatic day for everyone. The club have lost some brilliant people, he said. in terms of the coaching staff that have gone. Both men were keen to point out that it is only interim. Shaun Maloney said he's nowhere near in a position to be wanting the job permanently. It's only interim, and he will go back to the role that he was doing as professional pathway manager when a new manager is appointed. And Martin O'Neill as well, saying that it's only interim for him. And look, we love Martin O'Neill. We absolutely love him. There's a couple of funny bits in the press conference, but again, you just find yourself in disbelief that Martin O'Neill is there at 73 years of age to be the interim Celtic manager. He's going to rely heavily on Shaun Maloney, because Shaun Maloney is up to speed with the current squad. He's up to speed with how football works nowadays. Martin O'Neill hasn't had a job since pre-COVID, and that was a very short-lived one at Nottingham Forest. Like I say, at that age, to be coming in, it's so clear that Dermot Desmond has just put him there to try and appease the fans because he's a Celtic legend. I think it's a really difficult situation for Martin O'Neill to find himself in. He has stepped forward and taking it because he probably has a sense of duty to Celtic and to Dermot Desmond for giving him the job all those years ago, but it just doesn't feel like a coherent setup for Celtic. And I think the lack of organisation and the chaotic nature of all of this does not give us the best preparation to go into these games. We've got Falkirk tomorrow. We've got the semi-final to come on Sunday at Hampden against Rangers as well. And I think the players will be, like I say, shell-shocked. I think they are low in confidence as it is because of the form the team have been in. So I think there's going to need to be a period of stability. It has to come from somewhere. There's going to have to be a bit of calm, and I don't know where that comes from in the very short term because, like I say, so the manager's left, so many of the coaching staff have left, and they're left with Martin O'Neill, who's come back, and Shaun Maloney, who took training this morning. They'll also be joined by Mark Fotheringham as well, who was a young player at Celtic, has coached at Hertha Berlin, Swansea as well last season. He's most well known for an interview that he gave when he was at Huddersfield, which went viral at the time. It's a very different dynamic for the players now going into training on a day-to-day basis. Like I say, I think there will be a few players, whether it's the guys who have just arrived or who haven't been at the club very long, maybe signed in the summer or within the last 12 months, who will feel a bit lost at the minute because, like I say, it's absolutely chaotic, everything that's happening. So who knows what's going to unfold in the next week to 10 days in these big games that we've got coming up. But I think it is terrible preparation, and I think to take away from the press conference, there was very little of real substance because I think both guys, Martin O'Neill and Shaun Maloney, their heads are all over the place. They didn't even know they'd be sitting here at this time yesterday. So to get any real value and any real content and meaningful answers out of them was very difficult. I don't even think they'll have had a chance to evaluate the team, where it's at, the selections they've got for tomorrow, whether they will tweak anything tactically. There was a couple of questions along these lines, but how can they have any idea about that? Shaun Maloney did take the team for training this morning at Lennoxtown, but Martin O'Neill came in for the cold. He's got absolutely no idea, probably hasn't even met the players yet. In fact, I'm certain he hasn't met the players yet. So there was nothing really of meaningful value to be taken from the press conference. I think it's a really worrying situation for Celtic with how turbulent this has been and how we settle it down and try and get results on the pitch now in the immediate term in these big games we've got coming up. That will be seen over the next 7 to 10 days and seeing how we can navigate these games, seeing what the starting 11s might look like and whether there will be any tactical differences for the team as they line up. I think there was one question to Martin O'Neill about the tactical setup of the team, and does he have any idea yet how he might change it in terms of what he's watched and what he understands of the team so far. I think it was Melly from 20 Minute Tims that asked it, and he just said we need to create better chances. There was no real substance there about changes there might be. Like I say, really difficult for him, but very hard to take anything away from a press conference like that. So the big question is, where does Celtic go from here? The list of potential replacements for Brendan Rodgers, potential successors, isn't the most exciting. There has been news stories today linking Celtic with Ipswich Town manager Kieran McKenna, who is under contract until 2028. It's understood there'll be quite a significant compensation package due to Ipswich if that even got off the ground, which I think makes you doubt it already before there's even been any progress on it. I think Kieran McKenna is an appointment that potentially a lot of people would be open to. He had back-to-back promotions with Ipswich from League One through the Championship into the Premier League. Was relegated, obviously, that season in the Premier League and now is back in the Championship. I think they're sitting about 12th just now. I think there's obviously a stylistic fit that some people like. I haven't watched too much of Ipswich at all, maybe once or twice in the Premier League last season, but they did really struggle. Maybe he's the right profile in terms of his age, in terms of trying to be a progressive young manager who does have some experience at a good level. But it's all very early. Ange Postecoglou's name is also one that is in the mix. Now, I've made my feelings clear about Ange Postecoglou. I loved him. It was that first season when he arrived at the club, coming out of COVID, the mess the club was in, and going on the journey to winning the league, winning the double actually, was at the time my favourite season following Celtic. It was incredible. I loved every moment of it. The way the team played football, the sort of unity and the connection that was there with the players and the manager and the fans. It was amazing. And I really do rate his style of football, and I think it's a good fit for Celtic. But like I say, I think we need to try and progress past constantly bringing people back. And let me know in the comments if you can come up with a situation where a manager has returned to a club and it's been much better the second time round. Celtic have to learn that doesn't work. It didn't work ultimately with Brendan Rodgers, despite the fact that he won 2 league titles, 2 doubles, one with the League Cup, one with the Scottish Cup. Did well in Europe last season, but ultimately the whole tenure and the strategy and the vision of bringing him back didn't come to fruition. We brought Neil Lennon back the second time. It turned out to be a disaster. When are we going to learn that we can't just go back all the time? It's very, very difficult to see how that setup could work. Ange Postecoglou has been sacked twice in the last 4 or 5 months from Spurs and then from Nottingham Forest, where he had the shortest tenure in Premier League history. Now, that's not a reflection of him as a manager, but I think he must be in a bit of a headspin of his own. Whether he'd be in the headspace to take on the Celtic job in this situation when Celtic is under so much pressure, I'm not entirely sure where he would be with that. And like I say, I think it puts him in a position where he maybe wouldn't be the best fit. But like I say, I understand the clamour, I understand the desire to have him back. And his style of football was undoubtedly good for Celtic at a domestic level. We did struggle in Europe, but right now the problems are domestic and we can worry about European football again once we start to find a bit of stability. But ultimately, I just can't see a situation where we bring another manager back for another second tenure and it works out better than it did the first time. Now, let's have a look at the odds for the next Celtic manager. Those are on your screen now. Kieran McKenna, since last night, I think Ange Postecoglou was favourite. He's obviously come in based on the news reports today. He's evens now. Again, the odds for next permanent managers of a football club mean very, very little. I don't think it takes a lot of money to move people up the list. So there's not a great deal to be taken from these, but these are the names that are currently in the mix. According to the bookmakers right now, Kieran McKenna evens, Ange Postecoglou, as we've just discussed. Shaun Maloney is 6-1. He's effectively said he's not interested in it. He's nowhere near wanting the job on a permanent basis today. Martin O'Neill 10-1. He's also said it's only interim. Then you've got Knutson from Bodo Glimt. He's a very popular choice for people. He's done such a good job there, but again, I can't see that one happening. I think he's a manager who would have been in demand by numerous clubs across Europe over the last 3 or 4 years, and he's still at Bodo Glimt, so I'm not sure he would find Celtic an attractive prospect at this moment in time. Bodo Glimt are in the Champions League. It's their first Champions League campaign in their entire history. He's led them there. He's built the team and the club to get there. The fact the idea that he leaves them at this moment in time to come into the mess that Celtic is, I find it extremely difficult to believe. Wilfred Nancy, Robbie Keane, Roberto Martinez out at 20-1. it's not a great list. There's nobody really on that list. You could argue Postecoglou and McKenna, obviously being the top two, are the most appealing options. But like I say, Postecoglou's got that second time round issue and what he's been through in the last 4 or 5 months. And McKenna, again, an attractive prospect, but he's got the contract till 2028. Is he going to want to leave Ipswich? He chose to stay at Ipswich before they got promoted from the Championship to Premier League first time round, and I think there was interest from big clubs in the Premier League. He chose to stay. Again, would he be in the position right now where he wants to come and take the Celtic job? Who knows? We'll see how it develops. We will have a lot more discussion around this and a lot more content coming up, but that's where the odds are sitting right now. If we think about a timescale for the appointment, looking at the next 6 games, I think we've got to realistically expect that by the time we return to play St Mirren after the November international break, so we play St Mirren on the 22nd of November, I think it is, away from home, I think Celtic have got to try and have a new permanent manager in place by that time. Now, there's loads of factors and permutations that may or may not lead to that being the case, but I think that's the target. I don't think we can have this situation for too long, because like I say, Mark O'Neill's obviously just come back and he's not been in the game for a long period of time. I don't think it's a sustainable setup for us at all whatsoever. So I think this has to be short-lived, and we've got to do our best. The club have got to do their best, and whether you trust them to do that is a different matter. They've got to do their best to get someone in, I think, by the return from that international break. Don't expect it to happen in the next week or so. You do expect them to take the time to try and get it right and to try and get the right person. And like I say, we'll see how it unfolds. But in terms of the timescale, I'd like to think that by the end of November, we will have a new permanent manager in place, because with a view to January coming up, we've got to be in a position where that manager has had a chance to look at the squad and we can do our best to patch it up in January. Now, we've still got huge reservations and huge problems in terms of recruitment and the structure and how the club is run, despite the fact that the club tell us there's nothing wrong with it all the time. We can see, we can't be lied to, we can see the problems with the recruitment strategy and the structure and how it works, because you just need to look at the squad and look at previous transfer windows in the last 2 or 3 years to see its failings and to see its shortcomings. So we've got to get ourselves in a position where we've got a new manager in place and he's got time to evaluate the squad and then get some sort of business done in January that can put us in a better place. But I think this is turbulent times for Celtic. I think we will see that. I think it might get worse over the next period of time. Let's hope it doesn't. Let's hope that we can find something on the pitch and we can get a sort of fresh impetus and energy that can help us get results and navigate this short-term period. But I think how things have unfolded has been absolutely incredible over the last 24 hours, and we'll just have to wait and see what that looks like on the pitch for us over the next couple of weeks. That's it for tonight. Thank you for joining me on this video. I'll be back with you tomorrow. Outside the ground, I'll get a couple of the guys on after the game against Falkirk. Let's hope we do get the 3 points that we desperately need. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe. We're going to have lots of content coming up. I know that about half of you who watch this video won't be subscribed, so if by any chance you're new to the channel or you watch all the time and you haven't subscribed, please click the red subscribe button below. It is absolutely free and it really helps the channel to grow. See you tomorrow. Thank you.